I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the Webby-nominated podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Please also check out my other podcast, Kids Do Have Time to Read Books. I'm on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books and at Kids Do Have Time to Read. So please follow me. And if at any time you have suggestions, my email is zibby@zibbyowens.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much to my latest sponsor, the Mermaid Pillow Company, mermaidpillowco.com. They make these amazing pillows with sequins on the back and positive messages on the front, and they now even make custom pillows and blankets. It's an amazing company, and if you enter the code ZIBBY, Z-I-B-B-Y, you will get 10% off, which is super cool. So please check them out, mermaidpillowco.com. Welcome again, Sheri, to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, take 2.
Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy you're here. This is so fun.
It's an honor. You've had all the big authors on this show.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm just a little first timer with my little publication day today, but I'm so happy to be here.
It's so special to interview you on your pub day, so thanks for making the time today. It's really awesome. And for showing me how to set up this little tripod so we can now have video as well as audio, like up close and personal.
I mean, look at this room. My goodness.
Now we have a view of the door.
This is a dream room.
Oh, thank you. So The Beautiful No. Tell me about this book. I know because I read it, but tell listeners, how did you come up with the idea for this book? What inspired you to write it? What is it really about?
Really what inspired me to write it was a conversation that I had with my publisher, who's also my editor, Karen Rinaldi at Harper Wave. And she felt like I had something to say and that I had a story to tell. And certainly I had had a front row seat to all the most prolific wisdom keepers of our time. I had the ride of my life, and I found myself at 56 realizing that, you know, with a rough, rocky start in my 20s, but by 35, I had finally manifested the beginnings of the career of my dreams. And at 56, the reckoning I had to do was that I hadn't manifested the life of my dreams. And one area, being someone else's something, someone's mother, someone's employee, someone's spouse or partner, that does not a full life make. And so I had to have a real moment with myself, and I had to say, listen, I deserve to live the life of my dreams. Nobody knows more about making dreams come true than me.
Live your best life.
That's right. And it's high time I start doing that. And that's kind of what the book is about. It's lots of stories on my adventures along the way. The little gems that I've put in my treasure box, things that have become my spiritual foundation and the beginning of a reimagination of the middle of life.
And I loved how when you were writing it, I could really see you. You'll be like, I closed my journal and that was enough for today. And then, do you know what I mean? Like, I felt like I was in it with you, like you were using the book to help yourself, and we got to sort of come along with you.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I mean, here's the truth. I come to this conversation with you filled with humility, and I'm really only talking to myself. When I have a conversation like this, like with you, or even when Nance and I talk to people on our podcast, I'm inspiring myself. This is all I want to talk about. How do we elevate our lives? How do we have that full-on joyride that all of us are dreaming of? What are the little practices we can put in every day that's really going to catapult us to that life of our dreams we say we want to live? And I need inspiration. I need reminders. I need tools. I need to make this conversation part of my everyday vibrational atmosphere. So I'm really just having the conversation with myself. And
I'm just going to eavesdrop on your conversation with yourself.
I know.
I'm just going to be a
I know. And what it does, though, is it's so unbelievable to me how it just lands on other women. It's almost like we're so all in this together.
Yes.
And we just need somebody to say, okay, I know I had the big, crazy, glamorous, fabulous job, but it's not enough. And I didn't make all the right choices. And I don't always put myself first. And I'm shitty at boundaries. And I need to really learn how to love and treasure myself. So the second half of my life, are even more glorious days than the ones I've already lived.
And then during this book, you somehow discover this new business of yours that's now you've launched, which I love how you just like kind of wove it in, and now it's like this whole big thing. So tell me about the Pillar Life's beginnings. And
so Nancy Hulla is one of my BFFs for 30 years. She was my pal in Chicago. She was like the Friday night Chardonnay friend. We had our own 2-person little book club, which you'll appreciate.
I appreciate it.
We'd go to Barbara's Bookstore in Old Town. We'd get our book signed, Kay Gibbons, Wally Lamb. Those were the days. And then we'd go have our Chardonnay and we'd have a chat. And, she was married. I was single. So when men would come up to buy us drinks, we'd be like, away with you, sir. We're having our book club. So crazy. So she and I were both at this crossroads that I had the big, huge job and very little else. She was a freelance business writer and had raised these 2 fantastic kids, but we both had similar longings. Like, wow, what if this is only halfway? What are we doing with ourselves now? Mm-hmm. Are we like retiring? Are we like, is this all we get? Because we both want soulmate love, and we both want like health and vitality and wellness, and we both want a really solid spiritual foundation. And even though our dream lives look different, we decided that we were going to shift our relationship to become super intentional. We were going to inspire each other and support each other and uplift each other, and that was going to be our business. We were going to literally figure out a guidance system to help us stay on track for everything that we said we wanted, and that's when the Pillar Life was born.
Wow.
I know. It was so crazy.
So now you have you have a whole website.
Yeah.
You have all your pillars spelled out.
Yes, we do.
Which I feel like I don't know, I was looking, I'm like, do I get to pick and choose what I need help
with?
You want.
Here's what I know for sure. I mean, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. A little tribute to Oprah. But after many, 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 many fits and starts in my life and trying everybody's programs, like I had closets full of books and programs and memberships and things. And what I've realized now, and this may seem fairly obvious once I say it, but nobody else's program is going to just work for me. Mm-hmm. I need to be the creator of my own program. And I'll take bits of wisdom from you and you and you and this piece, this tip, this practice. I'll try this, I'll sample things. But at the end of the day, at a certain point, we all have to become the experts of our own lives. We have to. There's nobody else that's going to come in as much as I wanted it, as much as I prayed for it, as much as I searched and searched and searched for the expert who is going to be the expert on me. Nobody is. So that must mean that I'm supposed to be. And that is really the shift that I made 3 years ago.
And now you're helping others. And you even have this whole workbook I saw where you can craft your dream quest. And it's like so action focused. And it sounds like you just want to help people through what you've been through, which is amazing. Yeah.
If it's valuable to other people, I say, read the book, download the free companion workbook. And if the language resonates with you, if it stirs your spirit, then maybe it'll be super helpful.
And do you find yourself at all sliding into some of the other habits with your big old job with Oprah and the whole rest of it now that you're focused on this? Like,
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's one of the things that I think really caused a lot of struggle for me and caused a lot of unhappiness, quite frankly, was the idea that I was going to sort this out perfectly. That every day I was going to be so perfect, but I could only hang on to perfection for this much time. And then 2, 3 weeks, 2 months, 6 months until I run the half marathon. And then it would all fall to pieces because I was almost white knuckling it. And a couple things that I did that might be helpful to other people, but certainly is changing the game for me is finding that tender voice, that compassionate, understanding, tender voice, and using that voice in my head instead of the critical, you're unworthy, you look really fat in that was a stupid thing to say, you'll never do this. That voice that somehow gets automatic play when you don't pay attention to it.
Totally.
So tender voice, and then really understanding that it's going to be a game of of net, meaning there's a month when I will make 8 steps forward. Like everything is humming, my meditation, my plant-based eating, my workouts are going great. I'm easily able to reach for great feeling thoughts and stay in a really high energy mode. And then all of a sudden I'll just be drowning in cheese and Chardonnay. For 2 days. But I used to do that for like long periods of time. So it's like 2 days and I say, oh gosh, it's so interesting. Gosh, I really don't feel that well by the second day. I'm a little despondent. Things look a little blue or gray. And then I go, okay, so we made this many steps forward. We took 3 steps back, but it's a 4-step gain. And if I'm going to be unconscious, which I will be because I'm a human being, it's going to be for 2 days. Not 2 years.
I had a similar sort of moment the other day. I've been trying to what happens if I don't eat a lot of sugar? And then of course, I end up and I had a cupcake, right? And I was like, oh, I blew it. And I was like, oh my gosh, 1 cupcake? Do you know,
yes.
Last week I would have had maybe 3 cupcakes.
That's right.
And at least I ate it slowly. And do you know,
that's right.
It's all about the progress. I'm like, well, I would have had a lot more cupcakes last week. At least I had 1. I don't know.
Sure.
Every week is
for
something
sure.
else.
And also being a little sweeter. Oh my goodness, don't be so silly.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Go have a glass of water.
You had so many funny things in your book. You said that Waze for you is a world-class rut buster.
Yes.
And I love that. Can you explain that a little more?
Well, here's what I think happens to us. And if you're a little bit older, like in your 40s and 50s, here's my cautionary note to one and all. You might not even know you're in a big fat rut because I sure didn't. I had moved to a new city, LA, and I, had been doing this job at OWN for 5 years since the show had ended. I had no idea that I was you don't know you're in a rut because when you're in a rut, you've got canyony sides on either side of you. You've got to get out of your rut to go, oh my God, I was in a rut. And what was so funny in LA was I didn't know where I was going. I couldn't get from here to there without an app on my phone. Otherwise, it would have been old-fashioned with maps, paper maps out all over the place. But I didn't know where anything was.
I moved to LA after college, and I had a Thomas guide. Do you even know what that is?
No.
It was a book with spiral bound.
Oh, my God.
And I would go a few feet, and then I would pull over, and then I'd have to flip the page on the Thomas guide and get to another page on the map, and then I'd get on the 10, and then I'd pull over. Oh, my gosh.
You know what I'm saying?
Now I'm this is the greatest invention.
No.
Ever.
No. And the great thing about Waze is it never took me the same place the same way.
Yes.
So I was like, well, why aren't we going that way, Waze? And I'm like, okay. But I couldn't go the old way because I couldn't remember how to do it. So I'd have to go the new way. And that's when I kind of realized at a certain point, once you're out of your 20s, and if you have children, you're done having them, and you've had the first grade, the second grade, the third grade, all of a sudden there's not a whole lot new coming into your life. New experiences. And that feeling of newness, that's the life force, my friends. That's the, oh my God, life is so delicious. And you've got to feed yourself those new experiences. So that's when Waze got me thinking about that. And then I signed up and I took an Italian class and I was the worst one. I went to knife skills class at Salata. I was the worst one. But what I could feel was in my brain and the energy of my body was now flowing more forcefully. I called it fresh joy. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, there's so much to do in life in a way that I think that I was maybe in a rut, maybe borderline depressed because it was just same old, same old. I make my coffee the same way. I drive to the store the same way. I'm so habitual and patterned, I don't even realize how routinized I've made my life.
Interesting. And tell me also about your passion for your English bulldogs, because you had this great chapter in the book about is this a bad topic?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's a good one. Yeah, I wrote about Kissy the underdog. I have 2 English bulldogs, Bella, who I adopted when she was a baby. She was 11 weeks old. And then 2 years later, I adopted her mother. There was a series of coinkydinks and mystical things that happened. And she was really like a farm animal. She wasn't, not a puppy mill, but she was a farm animal. She wasn't a pet. So all of a sudden, there I was the EP of the Oprah show, and I have this farm animal that I have to help become a real princess. And
I love how you asked a doctor if he could do plastic surgery for like her underwear, and they were like, no, like it was too expensive or whatever.
No, because she arrived and all her nipples were dragging on the ground, and I was like, holy moly. I don't think I've ever even seen anything like this. And we live in the city. What am I going to do? Strap her up with like a English bulldog puppy bra? I'm like, oh my God, this is so terrible. And when I asked the vet, are there any procedures that can be done? And the vet looked at me. She goes, well, that would be like a massive mastectomy. I go, well, that doesn't sound like that's a good thing to do to a dog. And, eventually her body kind of sprang back into shape. But, for those of you who are animal people and have pets, my Bella and Kissy, I look at them as my little Buddha Zen masters. They bring forth things in me that nobody else could. They just bring that. There's always, wherever I go, when I'm with them, I'm always in a space of unconditional love, freely given from me and received from them. And even if I don't do that perfectly in my human relationships, that unconditionality, at least I have a way to surround myself with that full time.
You should do a children's book, Bella and Kissy.
Oh my gosh, I should.
Right?
Wouldn't that be good?
It would be amazing.
I mean, they're super cute too.
Yeah. Like the mom and the mom comes to visit.
Yes.
I don't know. I can see the whole thing. Okay.
Good idea.
Can come back to that later. You had this great line about the way that age 56 looks on different people, which I still think you could really do this for 42 because I feel like I can see the differences already. You wrote, you can tell by the way we move, by the way we talk, and the language we use. You can tell by the way we dress. You can tell by our energy, the smile in our eyes, or the listless, exhausted state of disappointment. And what you're saying is how it looks different on everybody and how these are the things that make you tell people apart. And there's this whole, you've been to the ball and had your chance moment that are just written on people's faces. How do you think people get there? And how can, I know this is, the pillars is sort of the answer to this, but how can you, when you're in it and you have the walls, and you're in this disappointed state, what are little things people can do? Right.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say to all of you who have human children that I have enormous compassion for you because children truly do put you in a state of aging. Because you start with a little baby, and next thing you know, they're 5 feet, 6 feet tall, and you can't help but compare yourself on the human aging plane to them. So, you're surrounded by proof that you're aging constantly. I can kind of forget about it. My Bella and Kissy look the same as they did 10 years ago. So I'm not as reminded constantly about that. So that's something to be aware of. But
I would also say, though, I'm so focused on my kids aging that sometimes I don't look up. Like, I feel like sometimes with motherhood, you're so looking down and you see other people and then you're like, oh my gosh, where is the last 12 years gone?
Right. Well, see, that's another issue too. Right.
Like,
that's
my Lord.
That's another
That's
piece.
not how I feel in my head.
Right.
I feel like I look like, I'm 28, but
I know.
I'm not.
Well, and here's the thing that I think is really interesting. You talk to women who are 85, they still feel like they're 25 too.
Yeah.
So that is always going to be our state of being. But if you feel like you are one of those women who are kind of cloaked in disappointment, you feel let down by life, you kind of feel like you're out of gas, I would say this: excavate, create, cast, create that tender voice, and just begin to coax yourself to little practices. Little things, little victories, little wins. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to stir the hope pot. You're trying to get the energy of a little bit of hope going in your life. Because once you get that little bit of fire started, all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could make a new recipe. Maybe I could go for a walk after dinner. Maybe I could have 4 glasses of water. Gosh, I feel so much better when I'm hydrated. Maybe I can take a hot bath. Maybe I can read a new book. All of a sudden, those dreams, they can start really small. The recipe for failure is to just go so over the top that you feel like it's impossible, creating more stress on yourself. Just little bit of hope stirring you want to do. And one thing leads to another. And pretty soon you're like, wow, what else can I do?
I feel like you revealed in your book that you had sort of been in denial of dealing with a lot of your own stuff for a very, very long time. Yes, you have this book that you have to write.
Yeah.
How do you think you were finally able to sort of access all the stuff that you had smushed down over the years? Like, what let you, at that point of life, let it all come out? And one thing after, like dealing with the death of your brother and like all these horrible, things that you just maybe didn't have the bandwidth to focus on at the time or like grieve then.
Right.
What let you do it then?
Oh, there were so many things that I had been unconscious about, or I had shelved or put in drawers for another day. I'll deal with that another day. I had massive weight issues. The death of my brother, the sudden death of my brother, I completely compartmentalized and went in survival mode. My mom was dying of cancer for 5 years during that as well. And I had a big, big job. So it was easy for me to use that job, that all massive, beautiful, sparkly job, to go unconscious about everything else, because at least I have that.
Right.
At least I have that. So the beginning of being willing to tenderly look at the rest of my life and say, okay, let's go, was really a sense of, a little bit of a sense of fear. As Nancy and I were kind of crafting what our company, what our work together was going to be, we both said, it's never too late to live the life of your dreams. We believe that. And then kind of in parens, and if not now, when? Mm-hmm. If not now, when? And then for me, I would ruminate on that, and I would keep saying that over in my head. And I'd say, it's never too late to live the life of your dreams. And if not now, when? And then I would whisper to myself, and if not now, maybe never. Mm. Because this is what we have. We have this now.
Yep.
And you kind of have to decide if you're feeling disappointment and a little broken and tired and kind of that feeling of being out of gas. Mm-hmm. And there is no more new for you. Let's say that you're lucky enough and you're 85 and 88 and 90. And oh my gosh, you just never want to say to yourself, why didn't I do that? Once I really had that decision and I was willing to like become more conscious, why didn't I?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the emotional background on how you can make that possible.
I recently read, I think it was Katie Arnold's memoir, Running Home, but it was another book where they were dealing with their kids and it was some horrible situation. And she says, someday we're going to laugh about this. And the husband says, it might as well be today.
Yeah.
Like,
that's right.
And so she thinks about that all the time. Like, why wait to laugh? Like, let's just make it in the moment.
Right.
So it's just a different approach to the everyday moments.
There's also something about when you're getting ready to like kind of take a good hard look. What are the griefs you haven't processed? So for me, it was my brother's death. I went into survival mode. He had 4 kids, a beautiful wife. My parents were devastated, and I had to go back to work because it was season 24 of the Oprah show. And I saved that chapter for last.
Interesting.
Because it wasn't writing a chapter about how I had processed something. Mm-hmm. It was, I was going to have to write the chapter about him to process that grief. And I just kept putting it off. Like, I'd be like, let's write that chapter about John today. And I'd be like, nope, not today. Not happening today. Not happening today. And finally, like, I'm out of time. I have to sit down and I have to do it. And it was deep and dense and painful and cataclysmic as I knew it would be. But that's the ride to the other side. That's the ride to the other side.
I love that. It's so nice.
Yeah.
Do you find time to read?
I do.
When do you read?
Oh my gosh, I do. Well, I usually read a little bit. I read a little nonfiction before I go to bed. I don't want to get immersed in a huge story of fiction, except I did make an exception for City of Girls, Liz Gilbert's new book. She's a dear friend.
That yet.
Oh, it's such a good summer romp. It's fantastic. And I'm reading Everybody Who Shares a Book Birthday with Me. I've been reading. And it's been fun. There's a little...
Nicola Harrison and Lisa Barr also have books that come out today.
Oh, really?
The Unbreakables and Montauk.
Okay, I'm going to read those.
So for book birthday.
I'm going to read Everybody on my same book birthday. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying that. And I go back and reread.
You do? That's
interesting. I do. I go back and reread my favorites over time. And I'm a big fan of the Gore Vidal series, the Lincoln series, the Civil War stuff. I love to read that.
Wow. Impressive. That's tough to read before bed.
Yeah, I know. I just, little bits.
So what's coming next for you? Any other books? You're going to write the children's book I mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about that.
What else?
We'll talk about that after. You can guide me on. I think that's a great idea. I'm going to enjoy this. Nancy and I have big plans for the Pillar Life.
Excellent.
We're putting together a proposal for a whole series of Pillar Life books and kind of inviting in all these great experts that we've discovered for ourselves. And maybe I will. I just moved to a small town. Big city girl. I just moved to a small valley town, and I'm planting my own crops.
Aww.
And I might write about that. Who knows? I might do some writing about that. Our podcast is super fun. We love doing it, the Sheri and Nancy Show. And, people call. And then I'm happy to consider opportunities and things. I feel like I finally understand that you can do what you love with people you love, for people you love, and it can be super easy.
It's very inspiring. And do you have any advice to aspiring authors who are sitting down now to try to do what you did?
Well, I will say to aspiring authors, this was very hard for me. Like the first year, I was a year late on delivery. What it was changed about 3 times, and without the unwavering, compassionate heart of Karen Rinaldi, my publisher, I probably would have just shelved the whole thing because, I have my producer, perfectionist, it's not, thing. And I just kept getting a little jangled by how deep I had to go. I'm like, God, I'm going to feel like I don't have any skin on when I go walking around in the world.
That's what made it so good.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, those are the best parts.
I skinned myself a little bit. So, yeah. So we'll see.
That's awesome.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books and for sharing your story with everybody.
Hi, moms. Hi, everybody. I'm so honored you asked me, and it was so great to be with everybody.
Oh, you too. Thanks for coming.
Yay.
Thanks again to my sponsor, Mermaid Pillow Co. mermaidpillowco.com/Zibby. Enter code Zibby for 10% off. Thanks so much. Check out those really awesome giftable pillows and blankets. Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. You can follow me on Instagram at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books and at Zibby Owens, and my new podcast at Kids Do Have Time to Read. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing, and thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music. Thanks for listening. You could always email me at zibby@zibbyowens.com.